Hello everybody! My name is Rachel and welcome to my weekly wrap-up of February 21st, 2016. This one will be a little bit brief because I only finished 2 books this past week. I haven't been reading all that much, and I actually have a third book I need to talk about because I forgot it last week. I was a little bit disorganized. The book that I forgot to mention was Unnatural Death by Dorothy L. Sayers, which is a Lord Peter Wimsey mystery, of course. I really enjoyed this one. The mystery is that Lord Peter hears a story from a doctor he meets in his club about an elderly woman who was dying of terminal cancer, but then passed away very abruptly months before she was expected to die from cancer. The doctor kind of suspected foul play, but there was no evidence for any type of murder or unnatural causes, and by making a fuss, he damages his career a little bit. Lord Peter, however, does think that this death sounds unnatural, and he goes off to investigate how this woman could have been killed without any trace of a murder weapon, and what the motivation would have been. I guess this is a pretty standard plot. Person dies, you go looking at wills and trying to find out who would have motive to kill said person. What made this one really good for me is the appearance of Miss Clemson. She's an elderly woman, I want to say she's in her 70s, and she's kind of a spinster, and Lord Peter befriends her and uses her to go off and ask questions in parts of society that he can't go to. She's basically a gossipy old lady who goes off to gossip with other old ladies. And she has the most wonderful letters that she writes back to Lord Peter with exclamation points and many underlinings and italicized words, and I love Miss Clemson. I love just this idea that she is friends with Lord Peter. It was really, really great, so I gave this one 4 stars. I also read another Lord Peter Wimsey book, which is Lord Peter Views the Body. This one isn't a novel, it's actually a collection of short stories, which I didn't realize when I picked it up, but it has 12 stories in it. I thought it was okay. None of them is particularly stuck with me except for the one with the guy who makes statues, because that creeped me out. And it was, I think, the only story I've read so far in this series where I was actually concerned that Lord Peter was going to have something bad happen to him. I was like, there was this moment where it was very suspenseful, like, okay, maybe you should get out of there because you're alone and you know a murderer is around. Usually he's not in situations like that. He's got lots of backup, but in this case, he didn't, so I liked that one. But overall, not a super memorable collection. I'm not sure that I really enjoy mystery short stories, but they were fine reading, very light, fluffy entertainment, and I gave this collection 3 stars. The other thing that I finally finished this week was Interim Errantry by Diane Duane. This is the collection that comes in between books 9 and 10 in the Young Wizard series, and it contains a short story, a novella, and a novel. It's kind of a short novel, it's on the shorter side. The first story is a Halloween story, and I thought it was okay. It was enjoyable to read, but nothing incredibly special. It's okay. The second story, a novella, is Christmas themed, and I have taken an irrational dislike to this story. I don't think it needs to exist. It has 0 plot, nothing important happens in it. The only reason to read this story is if you have been dying to finally see Philippe dressed up as a Christmas tree. And it really wasn't even that interesting to me when I read it. Anyway, I didn't like this story. I thought it had 0 purpose. It felt like an excuse to pander to fans and get all of your named characters together to have conversations. I might be a little bit harsh, but I really don't think the story needs to exist, and I got really tired while reading it. The other one in here, the second half of this, is the novel Lifeboats, which I did really enjoy. I would give it 4 stars probably. Part of the reason why I liked it is, well, it has a much better plot than the Christmas themed story did, but it concerns the specialty of a wizard who is introduced kind of late in the Young Wizard series named Momvish. She's not a human wizard. I forget what her species is called, but she looks kind of like a dinosaur. She's a species archivist, which means that she saves entire species. She rescues them, relocates them, evacuates them, and in some cases will bring entire species back from the dead. She shows up a lot in the books, but she pops in and out. She's very, very busy, and I've always wanted to know what her job is like. And Lifeboats is a story about her evacuating a planet. It's a very big operation. They have 150 million people to get off the planet before it breaks up into pieces. They're literally holding it together with wizardry so they can get all these people off of it. Momvish calls in tens of thousands of humanoid wizards to help with the evacuation effort that is planet-wide, so all of our usual characters like Nita and Kit go there. And there is a problem. A small percentage of this species refuses to be evacuated. There is something psychological or sociological going on that prevents them from wanting to leave the planet. It's something that they can't express themselves very well, or it doesn't cross the language, species, culture barrier. So they're hoping that by bringing a whole bunch of wizards there and talking to people, they will figure out what is keeping them from leaving, what is keeping them on a planet where they know they're all gonna die, and then convince them to leave. I really enjoyed this. It's told entirely from Kit's perspective, which I thought was a bit interesting because all previous books have really switched between him and Nita. Sometimes a book is a bit more focused on one of them rather than the other, but she's pretty much absent from this. She shows up a couple of times, and that's about it. So, but I do enjoy reading from Kit's perspective. If you really enjoy the Young Wizards series, I would say you could probably skip the first 2 stories and just get Lifeboats on its own. I don't think the other 2 stories are going to show up that much, they're just kind of one-offs, but Lifeboats certainly is a big event that will probably be referenced later. That is it for me this week. I hope you guys had a great weekend and didn't spend most of Saturday laying around with a headache like I did, because that was just miserable. The weather is so weird and it's mucking up my sinuses, so today's going to be a lot better. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll be back to talk to you again in my next video, and until then, bye.